This is Story Recapped. Today, I'm going to explain a drama, sci-fi film called Immortal. Spoilers ahead. Watch out and take care. By the late 21st century, genetically altered humans live alongside ordinary people in New York City. For research purposes, some of them are being rounded up and transported on a ship owned by a company called Eugenics. Jill Bioscop, a young woman with blue hair and milky white skin, tries to escape, but the guards immediately restrain her. Inside a pyramid that hovers above the city, Horus, the god of the heavens, has been condemned to death by his fellow deities for rebellion. They give him 7 days to see the earth because he was instrumental in its creation. As he leaves the pyramid, Bastet and Anubis advise him to make the most of his remaining time. 2 military helicopters immediately notice Horus when he gets out. Before they can do anything, Horus causes them to crash into each other. Inside the eugenics lab, Dr. Elma Turner takes an interest in Jill because of her extraordinary features and strength. Her colleague, Jack Turner, allows Elma to take Jill with her, but he wants a detailed report on all tests she performs on the girl. As Elma and Jill depart in a flying car, a hovering screen shows a program about the upcoming elections. A female candidate accuses Senator Allgood of spreading rumors that the intrusion zone in Central Park is a matrix of dangerous mutants. The candidate points out that scientists have already proven that it's a gateway to parallel or extraterrestrial worlds. She further alleges that Allgood is conspiring with eugenics to conduct illegal experiments on humans. Allgood sees the program and gets furious about the accusations, but he's more worried about the series of murders across the city. Jonas notes that Inspector Frobe, a specialist in abnormal cases, believes it's the work of a serial killer. Lily Leong warns Allgood that Frobe is a liability because he's a psychopath, but Jonas contends that Frobe is an honest cop. Later that evening, Frobe arrives at a crime scene and learns that the killer has claimed a 5th victim. His colleague, Huxley, immediately informs him that the body seems like it exploded from the inside, just like the others. As Frobe inspects the body, an officer takes a witness to the headquarters. However, the vehicle crashes before they reach their destination. Before long, the witness comes out of the car and heads to a bar. He asks the bartender if any of the people in the bar are sick, so the bartender discloses that he's perfectly healthy because he just replaced his lungs and bladder. The witness walks out of the bar without any explanation. Soon, as he sets foot outside, blood bursts out of his head. Shortly, a black feather lands on the witness's face. Huxley soon informs Frobe that the witness and the officer have died mysteriously. He notes that their deaths remind him of the Dayaks, but Frobe points out that those creatures were exterminated 30 years ago after the riots. The following day, Alma questions Jill about the lapse in her memory. She thinks Jill is blocking it because she wants to forget something, but Jill contends that she just can't remember anything. Alma discloses that Jill's body appears to be built less than 3 months ago. She convinces Jill to give her permission to perform medical tests on her and offers to give her a card that will allow her to live legally in the Western Hysteria Hotel. After leaving Alma's clinic, Jill meets with a mysterious man named John to inform him that Elma has offered her a job to be a guinea pig. She tells him about Elma's findings that her body is only 3 months old and some of her organs are not in the right place. John advises her to accept the job. He notes that he won't be able to take care of Jill for long because the planet's atmosphere is rejecting him. High above the city, a hibernation pod detaches from the prison facility known as Globus. As it drops to the ground, it hits other pods, causing 2 more to fall to the bridge below. When the police arrive to retrieve the pods, they discover that one of the pods is empty. Not long after, eugenics operatives arrive and shoot down the officers. After dumping the cops' bodies into the ocean, they retrieve the 2 hibernating bodies and flee. Moments later, Horus arrives at the bridge in the form of a falcon and finds more officers investigating the pods. One of the cops retrieves a frozen leg in the middle of the bridge and takes it to Frobe. When Allgood shows up, Frobe informs him that 3 of his men are missing. Frobe then hands over the frozen leg to Allgood and tells him that he has yet to find the man who owns it. Soon, Horus goes under the bridge and finds Nikopol, who still seems delirious from being taken abruptly out of hibernation. As Nikopol recites a poem by Charles Baudelaire, Horus enters his body and floats to an abandoned train station. After Horus leaves his body, Nikopol recognizes him as a deity and surmises that he must be dead. When Nikopol notices that his right leg is gone, Horus stresses that he's very much alive because he bleeds and can still feel pain. Horus then notes that he has spent 2 days looking for a human host to welcome him, but he's rejected them all. He's found Nikopol to be a compatible host because his body is clean and he comes from the past. When Horus reveals that the year is 2095, Nikopol notes that he is supposed to be released a year later. Meanwhile, Lily informs Allgood that they've identified the frozen leg. Allgood chokes on his food when he learns that it belongs to Nikopol. Horus gives Nikopol a new leg made of metal from the train tracks. Nikopol points out that it's too heavy for him, so Horus explains that Nikopol won't be able to move without his help. As soon as Horus enters the body, Nikopol is able to walk normally. Later, Horus remarks that Nikopol still seems to be leading subversive movements in the city. Even during his absence, a holographic message suddenly appears behind him, claiming to be from the spirit of Nikopol, urging people and mutants to avoid shedding blood or tears because eugenics would use him as ammo. Soon, Jill arrives at the Western Hysteria Hotel and starts taking the physical exams prepared by Elma. After the physical analysis, Elma tells Jill through the communicator to proceed with the food test. When Jill turns on the television, she learns from the news that Allgood will be joining the delegation tasked with communicating with the inhabitants of the pyramid. Another news report reveals that 12 people tried to break into the intrusion zone, but none survived. A security guard recognizes Nikopol in a department store and chases after him. As soon as the guard gets a clear shot, he fires his gun at Nikopol, but he remains unscathed because of Horus's power. As the guard continues to chase him, Nikopol tries to jump to another building. He manages to grab a ladder, but he loses his grip and falls. Before hitting the ground, wings emerge from his back, allowing him to fly. Meanwhile, Allgood gets worried about Nikopol's escape because the fugitive knows about the illegal experiment sanctioned by Allgood's father. Lily, a eugenics agent, notes that it could cause serious problems for her company if Nikopol divulges these secrets. So they visit Jack's lab to ask him to activate a hunter Dayak and kill Nikopol. Later, Horus instructs Nikopol to go to a bar to find a blue-haired woman. At the same moment, Jill is in Elma's lab to undergo more tests. Jill demonstrates her telepathic abilities by guessing the questions Elma wants to ask her. She learns that Elma wants to know if she took the food tests, so Jill discloses that she ate all the food in the prescribed quantities. On her way out of the clinic, Jill notices that her view of reality is warping. When Jill arrives at the bar, she immediately catches Nikopol's attention. However, she heads straight to a secret room where she finds a spacesuit waiting for her. After wearing the suit, she winds up in outer space, where she encounters John. The enigmatic man reveals that he found Jill at the heart of the intrusion zone 3 months ago. He discloses that the blue pills she takes are meant to erase her past, so she won't be distracted from her goal. John notes that the Earth will be her new home, but he can't stay because he's at the end of his cycle. Jill tells him that she's afraid of becoming human. After her conversation with John, Jill goes to the bar to drink. Nikopol tries flirting with her, but Horus eventually takes over his body and hypnotizes Jill. As they head out of the bar, Huxley attempts to follow them, but he encounters the Dayak in his car. The Dayak knocks him out and takes the black box in his brain to find out what he saw in the last few minutes. The creature learns that he heard the conversation between Nikopol and Jill before following them. With her mind still under Horus's control, Jill takes Nikopol to her hotel room, where Horus uses Nikopol's body to copulate with her by force. In the morning, Jill wakes up and finds black feathers in her bed. When she sees Nikopol in the bathroom, she doesn't recognize him, so Nikopol explains that they had a drink the previous night. Jill argues that she should remember because alcohol doesn't affect her. Nikopol then recounts that they slept together, but someone else was with them. As Nikopol attempts to tell her about Horus, he freezes and stops responding. Soon after Jill leaves, Nikopol is able to move again, so he uses the opportunity to scold Horus for using him to violate Jill. At the police station, Frobe connects a computer to Huxley's subconscious to find out what happened before he was knocked out. The computer reveals that Huxley found Nikopol with the blue-haired woman, but he encountered a Dayak. Frobe notes that the Dayak is just a replica because they found synthetic skin under Huxley's fingernails. Back at the hotel, Horus tells Nikopol that they need to copulate with Jill. Again, Nikopol refuses to let Horus use his body, but Horus notes that he has no choice. Horus removes Nikopol's ability to control his leg and slams him against the wall to show him what he will do if he complains again. When Jill visits Elma at the clinic, she learns that her organs are moving to their proper positions. Meanwhile, Allgood views the footage from the black box and learns that Nikopol is with Jill. To help the Dayak track the fugitive down, Jack feeds the creature with the tears that he collected from Jill before turning her over to Elma. Hours later, eugenics operatives pulled Jill into a ship as she was leaving a museum. The Dayak asks her where he can find Nikopol, but she claims that she doesn't know him. Jill blasts the Dayak's eyes with the energy from her hands, but an operative subdues her. Soon, Horus arrives and kills the operative and the Dayak by blasting them with beams from his eyes. The powerful beams also blast through the cockpit and kill the pilot, so Horus snatches Jill and flies her out of the ship before it crashes. Jill loses consciousness as Horus takes her back to the hotel. When they get to her room, Horus tells Nikopol that he had to erase the encounter with the Dayak from her memory. He tells Nikopol that they must protect Jill because he intends to impregnate her. Jill soon regains consciousness and confronts Nikopol about what he did to her the previous night. Jill notes that she can't find the memory in his mind, so Nikopol explains that his mind wasn't very clear at the time. Jill tries reading his mind and learns that he wants to have a drink with her, so she buys him a bottle of wine. They end up making out in bed, but Jill suddenly stops when she feels the cold temperature of his metallic limb. As Nikopol convinces her to continue, he suddenly feels Horus taking over his body, so he apologizes before the deity starts forcing himself on Jill. The next day, Jill goes to Central Park to meet with John. While she waits, she sees 3 men trying to get across the intrusion zone, but they come back out as skeletons. John arrives and tells Jill that it's still dangerous to cross over, so she'll have to return the next day. When Jill discloses that she's met someone, John notes that she's becoming more human, and she's starting to experience the most beautiful things, like love. Jill tells him that it's the first man that she loved, so John explains that love is very different on Earth. While looking for Jill at the bar, Alma encounters John, but he refuses to disclose where she is. Frobe overhears Alma's conversation that she's looking for a woman with blue hair, so he introduces himself because they're looking for the same person. Meanwhile, Lily and Allgood ask another Dayak to kill Nikopol. They feed the Dayak with Nikopol's leg to make it easier for the creature to find him. At the hotel, Nikopol senses that Horus has left him, so he engages Jill in a conversation while she's in the bathtub. When she submerges herself, Nikopol dips his hand into the water mixed with her blue tears to pull her up. Jill notes that he made a big mistake because her tears will stain his hand permanently. After Jill gets out of the tub, Jill kisses Nikopol and makes love to him on the bed. After they fall asleep, Horus leaves Nikopol's body and expresses his gratitude for helping him. When Nikopol wakes up later, Horus discloses that Jill is one of the very few people in the universe who have the power to procreate with gods. Soon, the Dayak emerges in Jill's bathroom by entering through the bathtub's drain. Before the creature could attack, John arrives in his car and crashes it through the window. As they flee, the Dayak tries grabbing onto the car with its claw, but John manages to drive away. Frobe and Alma soon arrive at the hotel, but they find nothing but the Dayak's detached claw. Alma and Frobe soon chase the trio while the Dayak follows them through the sewers. Not long, the police spot John's vehicle and join the chase. The cops start shooting at them, so Nikopol uses Horus's power to catch the bullets. When they get to the edge of Central Park, John warns Nikopol that mortals could die when they go into the intrusion zone. However, he soon realizes that Horus is in his body, so he goes ahead and drives into the intrusion zone. At that same moment, Allgood and the delegates arrive at the pyramid to contact its inhabitants. Inside the pyramid, the hourglass runs out of sand, indicating that it's time for Horus's execution. Suddenly, the pyramid pulls Allgood inside before vanishing into thin air. Meanwhile, John, Jill, and Nikopol get out of the car and walk through the desolate alien landscape to reach the heart of the intrusion. John gives Jill a red pill and tells her that it will permanently turn her into a human. He hints that she will lose her memory, but she will be writing a new story. After she swallows it, John advises her to forget about him. When John disappears, Jill weeps while clutching the jacket that he left behind. The Dayak soon catches up to Nikopol, but Horus comes out of him and kills the creature with rays from his eyes. Shortly after, a lifeless Allgood drops from the pyramid and lands on the Dayak. Before heading back to the pyramid, Horus tells Nikopol that he's grateful for his help and informs him that he'll be able to make use of his leg even without him. The deity then tells Jill that he'll never be far away from her. Soon, Jill is unable to recognize Nikopol after losing her memory. The pyramid eventually disappears after Horus faces Bastet and Anubis. When Nikopol comes out of the intrusion zone, the cops immediately arrest him and point out that he still needs to serve one more year in hibernation. A year later, Nikopol gets out of hibernation and meets with Alma to ask about Jill. Alma reveals that she's in Paris, so Nikopol flies there and finds her relaxing with her baby at the Eiffel Tower. When he gazes upon the infant in the stroller, the baby boy suddenly turns into a falcon and flies into his hand before soaring up into the sky. After Jill introduces herself, Nikopol sits beside her and asks her how she likes the planet. Jill recites a few lines from Charles Baudelaire's poem to describe her dread and fascination for Earth. Nikopol recites the rest of the poem, hinting that he's completely enthralled by Jill. A while later, the baby falcon returns to capture a dove and kill it. Inside the pyramid, Horus lies in the tomb, seemingly lifeless, but his tongue suddenly moves to lick a drop of blood on his lower beak.
Subscribe to watch more videos like this. Turn on notifications. And leave a like, it really helps the channel out. Thank you for watching.